Some of the most incompetent people in the country work for Donald Trump, which isn't surprising given he's arguably the most inept president in American history. But why does he choose to surround himself with these people? The answer is simple. They're shameless defenders. They'll back anything he does or says, no matter how reckless. Yet when it comes to the Epstein files, even they can't defend him. Not for lack of trying. We've seen Meghan R. Kelly go so far as to suggest it's acceptable for him to be around 15-year-olds. But every attempt to defend Trump only draws more attention to his biggest scandal. That's exactly what Carolyn Leavitt just did, inadvertently leaking Epstein evidence that's exploding in Trump's face. Before we dive into that, I want to ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, hit subscribe. It really helps support our work. Now let's get into what Leavitt revealed, leaking Epstein evidence that's causing chaos for Trump, starting with the material he's most worried about. The interview between Ghislaine Maxwell and Todd Blanche, which Jamie Raskin analyzed in detail.
These emails, of course, completely debunk and discredit what Ghislaine Maxwell told Todd Blanche when he went over and engaged in that sweetheart interview with her. Now his defense to this, we didn't have all of the emails from the Epstein estate. First of all, I find that almost impossible to believe. If you look at the index of what was seized by the FBI, and includes 40 computers from Jeffrey Epstein, 26 storage drives, for a total of I think it's more than 300 gigabytes of material. So the idea that his emails weren't in there is ridiculous. And of course, they probably didn't look. If they were in there, they never looked for them, because the very first thing they did when they took over the Department of Justice was they summoned all of the prosecutors' materials that had been assembled over the years, and they declared the case over. They shut it down before they looked at anything. But let's assume that he knew what he was talking about and he was telling the truth, that they were not in there. Obviously, the thing to do now is to say, okay, we're going to have a second round of interviews with the witness here, with Ghislaine Maxwell, now that we have all of these emails that completely debunk and undermine what it was she was saying. But they're not going to make any movement in that direction, of course, because they just want the whole thing to go away. And all of it invites the question, in what capacity has he been acting? Is it as Donald Trump's personal criminal defense lawyer, or is it as the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, who's interested in protecting victims and future victims from a billion-dollar child sex predator ring that operates or operated or has operated all over the world? And so, maybe he was operating as Donald Trump's emissary to determine, one, that she would say nothing untoward about Donald Trump, and two, to see whether she was going to be cooperative enough to actually merit a pardon from Donald Trump. So he's acting kind of like a pardon attorney. Well, he obviously will do anything that Donald Trump tells him to do. I think what it is that Congress needs to do at this point is to say that we completely oppose a pardon for this convicted child sex offender who continues to lie about both Jeffrey Epstein and also about Donald Trump, if these emails are to be credited.
What Donald Trump clearly doesn't understand, and what he didn't understand with the very stupid political calculation of sending Todd Blanche to interview Ghislaine Maxwell, is that when he brings attention to Epstein, no matter if it's good, as in Ghislaine Maxwell lying and saying that Trump was never even around Jeffrey Epstein and they didn't even know each other. Of course, this was a lie. And it's continued to be proved as a lie as these emails come out. But even when Donald Trump tries to get positive reviews from the pedos around Epstein, it's not good for him. And of course, the bad is really bad. But Donald Trump's crusade asking Pam Bondi to go after Larry Summer and Bill Clinton and any other Democrat that he can name is the same misstep politically, at least as having Todd Blanche talk to Ghislaine Maxwell. It is an admission of the thing that Trump tries to say is the Epstein hoax. It can't be a hoax if you want a further investigation. And if you want a further investigation, why won't you release the files? And if you won't release the files, aren't you in the files? This is the thing that Donald Trump doesn't understand, and it just doesn't clock to MAGA, which is why very stupidly Carolyn Leavitt decided to share this post, sharing evidence, and it's just blowing up in her face. Carolyn Leavitt from her official account retweeted and reposted, "This is astonishing." During a congressional hearing, Jeffrey Epstein was texting Congresswoman Plaskett feeding her questions, which she proceeded to ask. This story is blowing up right now about Jeffrey Epstein having communicated with a Democratic congresswoman during a committee hearing where she was questioning Donald Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen. Carolyn Leavitt highlighted this as if to suggest, look, Epstein was connected to Democrats. Look, he was involved in government matters. Look, he had influence everywhere. Yes, Epstein was connected to a lot of powerful people. That's exactly why the files should be released. Does she not realize what she's admitting? She's essentially saying Epstein had deep ties across government, and we don't care whether those people have a D or an R next to their name. We just want the truth and full transparency. And Leavitt clearly doesn't understand that. If what she's implying is that Epstein had relationships at every level of power, then isn't she also admitting that her own boss is blocking meaningful investigations? Does she not realize she's only drawing more attention to Epstein? It doesn't matter who he knew. We just want accountability and clarity. And of course, there's also the broader conversation resurfacing. Epstein was clearly worried about Donald Trump. Michael Wolff warned him that Trump's rise made Epstein vulnerable. And while Trump may have benefited from Epstein staying quiet, Epstein also faced serious danger. So it makes sense that Epstein would have opinions or communications related to Trump and his legal team. But what is obvious here is that Carolyn Leavitt doesn't grasp that bringing up Epstein only strengthens the call for full transparency. She may not get that, but we're going to keep pushing, just as Jasmine Crockett did here.
At the top of the show, a number of, at the time, Donald Trump surrogates and supporters, including his son and his vice presidential nominee, say that the Epstein files should be released. Obviously, there was a Democrat who was president at the time, Joe Biden. Why were Democrats not louder at that time about this release?
So a couple of things. Number one, you had pending litigation. So we're not the ones that went out making some campaign promises. In fact, the vast majority of Democrats had been campaigning on things such as affordability. I know that Kamala Harris had an actual plan so that people wouldn't necessarily be stuck in a mortgage for 50 years, but instead she wanted to make sure that they could have $25,000 down payment so that they could move into homes and make life overall more affordable. So we were focused on the bread and butter issues. This was a campaign issue of his. But while there was pending litigation, if you look at when Maxwell was finally convicted, and honestly, she just finished probably one of her last appeals here recently, you are not usually in the middle of an active case and then you say, oh yes, we're going to release everything. That's not how that goes. So she was prosecuted under the Biden-Harris administration. So no, this was not something to do at that point in time. At this point in time, it's clear that they are not interested in going forward with any additional prosecutions, in addition to the fact that the survivors have come forward. They are begging Congress to do this. This is not something that the survivors were necessarily doing at that time. They were still believing in the system and hoping that it would work.
What's your sense? The survivors obviously have been on Capitol Hill,
Yeah.
And of course, many of them endured just horrific things. They have said it should not be on them to provide a list
Yes.
of the people that they encountered.
Yes.
Do you, in the course of your work on the committee and perhaps discussions with them, have any understanding or thinking that they may change their position on that we may see a list from them?
I don't think so. Let me tell you something. There's been recent reporting where MAGA seems to be upset because I have to pay for security. I'm actually upset that I have to pay for security as well. The threats that come with being on the other side of this president are significant and serious. And so when you have a list of women, and they are the ones that are making these claims. For anybody that doesn't want to believe the truth, then they will start to go after them. They will start to threaten their families. It would be better if we had the contemporaneous reports from law enforcement where they called in at those moments and gave the reports of what was happening. It's kind of like the birthday letter that he wants to pretend is a hoax. That was a contemporaneous writing at that time. This was not produced in real time, and they don't want it to be seen as partisan or political. They just want people to believe in the facts. And so if it is that they reported this maybe even before he was president, then maybe people will actually believe it versus the hate that they get thrown at them in this moment. So no, I don't think that they'll do it. I think it's the smartest thing that they can do for safety. It is sad that we have survivors that feel like they can't be safe from an American president and his cronies, but that's where we are.
We need to keep pushing this issue and let MAGA struggle with it, because they clearly don't get it. We want the Epstein files released. We want full transparency. We'll accept it in whatever form it comes, and we will continue calling for it on this show. If you want to support that, hit the subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stayed until the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I will see you soon.